Hi Mayans and welcome back. And for those of you who are new, I am Blvd Maia, and I talk about everything in my transgender lesbian life that you would really like to know about but are afraid to ask. Because greater understanding makes the world a better place for all of us. I did that in one shot, not bad for having taken a month off. And yes, I am back, and that required me going to therapy and getting back on antidepressants because, well, I was having bad thoughts. But I am feeling much better now, and I'm on the road to recovery, so I figured, you know what, let me get back to making my videos because I love making these. And I consider being able to talk to all of you a privilege as well as a joy. Now, as you can see behind me, things have changed a little bit, and that is because during my time away, I took the opportunity to renovate my guest room, and I intentionally gave it more YouTube-friendly colors. So from now on, you might see me recording in here much more often, which means I might need to get a whole new set of lesbian ladies that kind of hang right there. But for now, you're just gonna have to stare at this lesbian lady. Now, of course, in my time away, I wasn't away from my social media, and on Twitter the other day, I came across a thread that I thought was very interesting. It was posted by a trans woman, and she had asked other trans women in what way we had dreamed of getting rid of our penises. If personal experience is any measure, I would say a lot more of us do than don't. And I'm not trying to say that if you're a trans woman and you're okay with your penis, that's a bad thing, and that you're not valid. You definitely are valid. But for those of you like me, who from the moment you came out as a transgender woman, you kind of dreamed about what it would be like to one day have your own vagina, there was probably a time period before that where you fantasized about having that happen to you in ways that were outside of your control. But as I was reading through the stories on this thread, it actually reminded me of something I came across in the very early days of my transition. Back then, I used to be part of a discussion board called Susans.org, and it was the first online place I went to get support from other trans women. But I remember one day a cisgender gentleman happened across our group and posted something that kind of caused a tizzy on the group. And this is what he said, and I have to say, I don't know if he was telling the truth. In fact, in retrospect, I highly doubt he was telling the truth. He had recently been diagnosed with penile cancer. And this is where things get a little wild. He claims that his doctors had recommended, in order to get rid of the cancer, truncating his penis. Yeah, I'm talking about cutting it down. Now that, of course, would severely impact his sex life, and as you can imagine, he wasn't looking forward to that. So he had done a lot of research on his own, and he came across the idea of if they could just, turn it into a vagina. Yeah, that sounds pretty dubious to me too. But to the other ladies in the group, this guy was basically experiencing their dream. Like, oh my gosh, this wasn't something I really asked for, but we're kind of really happy with the result, which is exactly what the Twitter thread was about. And it seemed to strike a nerve because there were so many entries to it. And so something that I thought was really an innermost secret thought that I could never share with the rest of the world and would take to my grave turns out to be shared by a whole lot of other transgender women. So in my own social media, I decided to ask that question too, and boy did I get some responses. So I have noticed in general that they fall along two separate and distinct lines. The first being real world things that could actually happen. Unfortunate accidents to a cisgender male at least, but to a transgender woman, she would be thrilled. And the second I would file under magical and science fiction fantasy. And the first one I'm going to share with you is by Brianna, and Brianna came up with one I had never thought of before. It's like something out of the Final Destination movies, but Brianna had her sights set a little bit lower. I was following a truck carrying rebar and had thought of having one bar come down at an angle so it could just pierce through my genitals and then I would be free of them. Wow. I mean, I've heard of amputation fantasies, but that is like unbelievable. I guess it does have that out of my own control kind of aspect to it, and that it would be an accident that nobody would question, that somebody would just say, wow, that is incredibly bad luck. And really points to the desperate things some of us think of when we have this configuration that we don't want. Because she isn't really even talking about having a vagina, she's talking about just getting rid of her penis through any means necessary. I mean, to a cisgender guy, his penis is his prized possession. Which is to say that if you currently identify as a cisgender guy, but any of these appeal to you, you might want to rethink that. And the next award for I never would have thought of that in a million years goes to Cassandra, where she says, strapped into the saddle of a machine which would pump acid past the offending area and melt it away. I don't even know what to say to that. I did not want a penis. I don't know if I want acid to eat it away though. In comparison, Rose's fantasy of having something happen to her as she was running with scissors is tame. Come on, Rose, you gotta come with more game than that. There's a movie out there on Netflix, in fact, called Girl that I gotta watch because apparently at the very end, this trans woman actually tries to cut her penis off with scissors. That might end up being my next video actually, where I'm gonna start reviewing movies, so stay tuned for those. And then finally I come to my friend Roxy, who actually posted a few different kinds, and I asked her to elaborate. But when I was younger and less rational, I would idealize a djinn appearing and granting me a wish to just become with my genitals. I think all of us who ever watched Aladdin hope that Aladdin might actually get turned into Jasmine or something along those lines, or wish for like like 10 different wishes, and one of them being world peace, but you know, while you're at it, giving me a woman's body would be awesome too. Older, I realized this would not be feasible to accomplish. But since I was training in archaic weaponry at the time, swords, rapiers, and whatnot, and I think all of you suspect where this is headed, it would be more feasible that some wild axe would fly through the air and cut me perfectly to form a vagina. Okay, I wouldn't call that any more rational. Yes, something that can practically happen, and that an axe could fly through the air and cut you right there. And I suppose that if it happened just right, you might end up with like two sides that, you know, would, oh gosh, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna go any further. And as she goes on to say, it would have given me an awesome story, but older yet, that seemed very reckless and improbable still. So it came down to some rare condition where I was deathly allergic to it and had to have it medically removed for survival and research. Having a disease that makes you have to get rid of it is something that's happened to people. Although I would say another way to have it done would be to really piss off your girlfriend and have her chop it off like what happened to John Wayne Bobbitt. So Roxy also brought up, of course, the magical means of transformation. Now my friend Ed Dorky Nobody, who's not a nobody girl, said, I prayed to almost every god I know of and I searched online for spells. Yep. Totally with you there. I did a lot of those things myself. Pray to God was probably in my #1 choice, and that I would go to sleep saying, you know, please in the morning let this be the case. Because, you know, if you just woke up in a woman's body, you could basically tell everybody this was who I was destined to be. It's God's will. Although looking back on it, they probably would have said that you made a pact with a demon or some evil spirit did it to you. Which is actually what Jess said, pact with a demon. Experimental medical procedure that was necessary for reasons. Let's see if we can actually turn this penis into a fully functional vagina that you could have a kid out of. Something like that, I imagine. And of course, she also said just waking up female one day, and that is probably the #1 thing that we all fantasized about. What was really awful is when I would go to sleep and then have a dream that I was waking up in a female body. And then, of course, I would actually wake up and it wasn't there. That was the worst. Now, not surprisingly, a lot of us who prayed to God for this to happen actually started to lose our faith when it didn't. And Emily Mack actually pointed that out when she said, in middle school, I used to pray to God every night to wake up and I'd magically be a woman. Eventually, this ended up being the primary reason I became an atheist. It does feel like a betrayal after a while, so I can totally understand some people who would no longer have any faith at all. I can understand why somebody would say, if there is a God, why would that asshole do this to me? Because all joking aside, and I've been laughing a lot through all these descriptions, a lot of that is because you have to laugh to keep from crying. It certainly wasn't funny at the time we were having these feelings. And finally, we get down to Andrea, who actually has one that I haven't mentioned up to this point, and that is always been superpowers for me, shape changing but then get stuck. And I'm going to combine that with an earlier one where if a genie were to appear to me and grant me 3 wishes, one of them would be shape changing powers. Because why be one woman when you can be any woman? Although I will say that right now I'm pretty happy to be this woman. And after all those things that happened to me in the past, after all those disappointments, and after all those mornings where I woke up and God didn't grant me my wish, eventually I just had to do it on my own, and I did. It was something I was afraid to do, but I will say that it is everything I hoped it would be and more. And I hope one day we live in a world where these gender-affirming surgeries are available to any transgender person who wants them. So that's where I'm gonna leave off my big return video. Yay! Now, if I didn't cover your particular method of the way that you always wanted this to happen to you, leave it in the comments below. Or if you're transgender or cisgender and have any questions about bottom surgery at all, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments as well. And if you have a dime to spare, please consider supporting what I do by contributing to my Patreon. And on that note, please like this video by giving it a thumbs up, please share this video, and please subscribe, and see you around interwebs.